Election day is less than 6 months away, and we have a recent study from Just Facts, the organization called Just Facts, and they are sharing some extremely disturbing findings. 10 to 27% of non-citizens are illegally registered to vote. That's shocking. Now, keep in mind, the U.S. Census recorded a population of nearly 20 million voting age non-citizens in the U.S. during 2022. So it certainly has surpassed 20 million by now. So the extent of the problem is just staggering. Here to share more about this shocking study is Jim Agresti. He's the president and co-founder of Just Facts. Jim, welcome to the program. Glad to have you.
Jody, thank you for having me on.
Well, it's our honor. Let's just jump into this. How in the world are these ineligible voters able to vote in the first place?
Well, there are very broad openings for non-citizens to vote. In no state in the nation are they required to provide proof of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote. Now, a couple of states like Arizona tried to enact that requirement, but they were blocked by a court ruling supported by the Obama administration. And if you look at the federal voter registration form, it says you can submit all different forms of ID to register. That could be a social security number, it could be a driver's license number, or it could just be a utility bill. I mean, these are things that anyone can get by living here. They do not prove you're a U.S. citizenship. You're a U.S. citizen. And more than that, a lot of non-citizens have fake social security numbers, especially illegal immigrants. That's what they do to work. At a recent estimate by the Social Security Administration, they tallied 2.5 million non-citizens who had social security numbers gained by using fake birth certificates or stealing those numbers from somebody else.
Wow, 2 million. All right, well, look, the breakdown is beyond description. Any idea where the breakdown is? And I want to go on to other questions, but is this an intentional breakdown in the process, or is it just absolute incompetence? What's going on?
Well, it's always hard to read people's minds, but I can tell you this. The vast bulk of these non-citizens are voting for Democrats. According to the best data we have, about 80% of them will vote for Democrats when they vote illegally. And Democrats are fighting tooth and nail to prevent any kind of checking of people's citizenship. It does benefit them. Is that their reasoning? It's an obvious incentive, but I can't read their minds. Wow.
Well, all of this is of extreme interest to the entire country. In fact, I just published a book last month, Sacred Trust, Election Integrity and the Will of the People. Every time one of these illegal individuals votes, it takes away a legal vote of a U.S. citizen. So how extensive is this problem in your estimation, your studies?
So based on the latest available data, approximately 1 million to 2.7 million non-citizens are going to vote in the upcoming presidential election unless something changes. And that is more than enough to tip the results of congressional races, Senate races, and yes, the U.S. presidency.
So what do we do about it? I mean, here it comes down to an enormous problem. We're talking in excess of 1, 2, 3 million people, who knows how many it may be, who you say are going to vote illegally. What at this point, with the election 6 months away, what can we do about it?
Well, the Republicans have introduced a bill to require proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. Will that bill be enacted before the next election? Obviously not. So I don't think there's anything that plausibly can be done at this moment. However, I do think in the aftermath of the election, and we hate to have a repeat of 2020, that there should be some accountability, some lawsuits that demand proof that people are who they say they are in tight races. None of that was secured in the last round of election lawsuits, and it needs to be there. A candidate has to make a a plea and say, hey, I want this data to prove that these people who are registered and voted actually are citizens.
And this is not a difficult lift. I mean, we know the borders are wide open. We know these folks, I mean, more and more studies are coming out indicating that they are being encouraged to register to vote by different organizations and so forth. We know there's a problem. It's not a heavy lift to find out whether or not these individuals are citizens or not. So any idea what the status is of the bill that you mentioned, the legislation that could be potentially moving?
My guess is it will move in the House and die in the Senate, but that's just an educated guess. And again, even if somehow it got through the Senate, there's no way Joe Biden's signing that bill.
No, I'm afraid you're right. Jim Agresti with Just Facts, president and co-founder, thank you so much for the research you've done. Thank you for taking time to join us today on Washington Watch. Greatly appreciate it.
Jody, thank you for having me.